On today's show, the Cavs are going to look to make it 5 wins in 6 games as they take on the Orlando Magic on Saturday night, first 2 games against the Magic. So Philip Rossman-Reich of Locked On Magic stops by, tells us more about what to expect as the Cavs take on the Magic. We'll do that straight ahead on this edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi again, everybody. My name is Danny Cunningham, and I cover the Cleveland Cavaliers over at my Substack, The Inside Shot, and you're making another edition of Locked On Cavs, your first listen. You can find this show the same place you can find any other Locked On podcast. That's Apple, that's Spotify, that is YouTube as well. If you're watching right now, please do us a favor, hit the thumbs up button and click the notification bell as we get started, and make sure that you are subscribed wherever you might be listening to this show. The show, of course, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network in all of America. And today's episode of Locked On Cavs is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA, for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, Philip Rossman-Reich from Locked On Magic swings by. We talk about everything going on with the Orlando Magic. We did record this on Tuesday, so we chatted prior to Orlando losing to Charlotte earlier this week. Jalen Suggs has not played since January 2nd. He is listed as probable for today's game. Franz Wagner, however, is not going to be playing. He has been ruled out of this game as I record this part of the show early on Saturday morning. We don't have information as far as who's going to be available, who won't be available for the Cavs, but nonetheless, this is a big game. The Cavs can do some good things in the standings with a couple of wins against the Magic. So now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Philip Rossman-Reich. For the first time this year, it's Philip Rossman-Reich from Locked On Magic, as the Cavs and the Orlando Magic will be taking on each other twice on Saturday and then on Monday. It feels like this is the 5th different baseball series type thing the Cavs have had so far this year. I have no idea how many times the Orlando Magic have done it this year, but it has been a frequent thing on the Cavs schedule. So Cavs fans certainly know what to expect as they get ready to see the same opponent for back-to-back games. And I want to learn a little bit more about the Orlando Magic, and Philip is the guy to learn from. So I just kind of want to start with this. And I know that the team, and we are speaking on Tuesday night, the Magic will play on Thursday. They will have another game before they face the Cavs. It will be their first game back from a European vacation where they split a series with the Memphis Grizzlies. What's just like been the general synopsis, if you will, of the Magic season so far?
Disappointment's too harsh, but it unfulfilled. It just feels like there's been a lot left on the table for this team, and that things that we assumed that they would have, they just haven't had. They're still good enough to still sit in 6th in the East. They're still in that kind of group of teams that are all within 3 games of each other from 3rd through 8th. So they're still right in the mix at the midpoint of the season. But it really feels like we all expected the Magic to take this big leap forward after the Desmond Bane trade, especially. And not that they've sort of stood still, but they're doing just enough to still be within striking range without inspiring confidence that they're about to figure it all out. And so it's just been unfulfilled is probably the best way that I would describe the first half of the season.
I think that's a good way to put it. I'm glad you brought up the standings in the Eastern Conference, because the Detroit Pistons right now are just running away with the #1 seed, and that's fine. The Pistons are a really good team. I don't necessarily think that any other team is scared to face them in the playoffs, though. And then you've got the Celtics in 2nd, and the Cavs, as we record this, are currently in 7th, and they could be in 6th by the end of the night, depending what happens.
It's a virtual tie, though, with Orlando.
Correct, but there's a 3-game difference between the Cavs in 7th right now and the Boston Celtics in 2nd. So, I still think there's a lot to be decided as far as the standings go. The Magic could certainly rise, and I expect the Cavs to rise, but from your perspective, what needs to happen for Orlando to, and I know this is not climbing some mountain, because I just talked about how the margins are so tight in the Eastern Conference, but what needs to happen for the Magic to find a way into the top 4 at the end of the season?
Win consecutive games would be nice. They did
that. They won before they went to Europe, and they won their first game in Europe. It was their first consecutive win since early December.
It was their first win streak since December 1st. Yeah, it's consistency. It literally, you're just asking for this team to look the same or have the same intensity or the same urgency or the same level of play game to game. Like literally for 6 weeks, they have essentially traded wins and losses. They're 9-9 in their last 18 games. They had a stretch from the end of the NBA Cup. They went out west after the NBA Cup, lost to Denver for their second straight loss. They exchanged wins and losses for every game. It was like 15 straight games or 14 straight games. They exchanged wins and losses until they beat the Memphis Grizzlies in Berlin for that 2-game win streak that everyone was celebrating before the floor dropped out in London, which, splitting that trip isn't the worst thing in the world at the end of the day. But the Magic just need to find consistency. When you think of this Orlando Magic team, and I'm sure Cavs fans still have nightmares a little bit about that Magic defense that they faced in the playoffs 2 years ago. But when you think about this Magic team, you think about defense. The Magic are 11th in the league in defensive rating as we're recording this. They're since Franz Wagner's injury on December 7th, and he's back now. But since then, they're, I think, 16th, 17th, or 18th. They're like in the teens in defensive rating. And that just isn't this isn't the formula for this team to be successful. And so for the Magic to take advantage of the East, like not running away from them, they've got to get back to their core identity. They've got to get back to, we are a tough-minded defensive team. You are not going to score on us. We're going to hit you hard. They can't call everything. We're going to dictate the tempo in terms of this game. And then the offense will come out of that. Like, that's got to be their first and foremost. And it just hasn't been for a good chunk of the season.
Why do you think they have slipped defensively?
I think some of it is to improve the offense, which has improved. They're 16th in the league in offensive rating as we're recording this.
Are you guys throwing a parade down there for that? Like, I know how long it's been since they were not bottom 10.
Like literally all I asked for was a league average offense. And the Magic
that's what it is. Offense. 16th is league average.
We'll ignore
baby.
that they're 24th in the league in half court offensive efficiency for now. But they're scoring points. Points aren't a problem anymore. I think some of it is they made a bigger downgrade on defense than they were anticipating. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, for all his struggles offensively, still one of the best defenders in the league at so many different things. Point of attack, fighting through screens. Desmond Bane is fine, but he's not great. I think Jalen Suggs being injured for a good chunk of the season now. He got hurt in Vegas, missed some time, came back against the Bulls. Things were going really well in that game. And then he got landed on. Jalen Smith just landed on him. He's been out since then. That was December 31st, since the new year, I think. He's not having him hurt. So now you've moved Anthony Black to the main rotation, and your bench has just had this kind of downgrade defensively. So I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination of not having the personnel to defend at that high of a level anymore. I also think it's a little bit of, they put a lot of eggs into the offensive basket. They were trying to improve their offense. It was a big thing. And I think they kind of took their defense a little bit for granted. And maybe didn't lay the foundations in as deeply as they had in previous years defensively. And they're trying to find it. And certainly some of it is like inconsistency of how officials are calling fouls and some of the things the Magic are able to get away with. I think there's just frustration. I think, I think as teams grow and learn how to win, honestly, like I get the sense, and I don't know if this is true or not, I get the sense they thought this was going to be easy, that it was just going to be like, oh, we added Desmond Bane, we got the 2K, it's a 2K thing. It's just like, it works on paper. Why isn't it working in reality? And figuring that out and understanding that it's you still got to do all the little things that you were doing. I think that's been a little bit of the issue for the Magic so far.
Where are you at overall with the Paolo Franz pairing as the two best players on the roster?
I think they're both still really young. And I think it's really easy to get swept up in, well, this team's supposed to be good now. Why aren't they as good as they need to be? Why are they taking a step back? Progress isn't linear. And so I think both of them are trying to be good teammates. Honestly, I thought early in the season, Paolo wasn't scoring at the rate, and his jumper was all messed up at that point. He wasn't scoring at the rate that everyone was used to, but he was working overtime to get others involved, like almost out of his way to get others involved. Especially because he didn't have a lot of faith in his jumper. And even now I see him doing a lot more. He's averaging, I think, I don't think he's at a career high assists yet, but he is trending in that direction. In this last 10 games, he's averaging like 22, 23 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, and like 5 or 6 assists per game. Like he is a true offensive hub right now. But I think some of it is just they're still so young. They're still going through the ups and downs and frankly, learning how to be leaders. The biggest thing that I've been kind of harping on Paolo on, especially because Franz was out for more than a month, was like, you need to set the example at every level. And I think that's an area where Paolo really has struggled this year, is to be like, we need, like, someone's got to give this team some energy. Someone's got to put the team on their back. And maybe it's because Paolo just doesn't have that in him this year for whatever reason. Maybe it's just he's trying to, and it's just not nearly as effective as it needs to be. But I think it's silly to give up on either of them individually or give up on them as a pair, especially because we just haven't seen Paolo and Franz together very much this season. Because 12 games into the season, Paolo gets hurt. He's out for a month. Shortly after Paolo returns, Franz has his high ankle sprain. He's out for a month plus. We just haven't seen them together to draw any conclusions. And we've seen them be effective in the playoffs together. So I think there's enough there to say, like, just give it time to let them figure it out. And frankly, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think they have both had their best on-court together net ratings. And Paolo's had his best net rating without Franz, at least before Franz's injury. He had his best on-court net rating without Franz that he's had in his career. So the sample sizes are just so small compared to how long the season's been already. There's still enough to just say, like, hey, just let them work it out. Let them figure it out. Let's make these mistakes now, because next year, the year after, when you're really deep in the apron, is when you want to be winning and have these things ironed out.
More with Philip in just a second, but first, today's show is brought to you by Gametime. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building. The energy, the crowd, that first big run that gets everyone on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments. They don't want to be stuck refreshing a screen or guessing how much a ticket is really going to cost to get in the building. And that's where Gametime comes in. The Gametime app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the Gametime app is straightforward and smooth. Finding tickets takes just a few taps, and seeing the view from your seat before buying makes choosing tickets easy, and you can be confident in your purchase. Prices do include the fees up front, so that the total you'll be paying is clear from the start. Plus, the features like zone deals help to unlock great seats at even better value, whether it's an NBA game or another live event. Everything is right there in one place. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That is LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase with Gametime. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. Friday nights are awesome. And during basketball season, they feel a little bit different. FanDuel is making them even better, because every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour, your official pregame, because it's a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern Time are appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour, because you open the FanDuel app during Happy Hour, and it's always going to bring something new. You've got boosts, you've got bonuses, you've got other really cool surprises that you can look forward to. And it's easy to check the weekly specials before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing couldn't be better. It's right before the games, right before your weekend truly gets underway. Adds just a little bit of extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. I ask this question to myself all the time, and it's like in Cleveland, it's about Donovan Mitchell. Oddly enough, it's about Jalen Tyson. It's about Sam Merrill. And I'm going to ask this question about Anthony Black as it pertains to the Magic. But where would Orlando be without the step forward that Anthony Black has taken as a basketball player this year?
I'm going to make a team-wide point before I make the Anthony Black point. Last year, the Magic in December had all the injuries. Like Franz was out, Paolo was out, Jalen Suggs was in and out of the lineup. At one point, they lost 9 of 11 games. And so the difference between this year's team and last year's team is last year, the Magic lost 9 of 11 games when they faced all these injuries and all this adversity. And this year, they went 9-9 in 18 games. To me, that is all Anthony Black. If Anthony Black does not take this step forward and become this consistent, they're probably in that play-in group. They're not in the tightly knit group that's fighting for 3 through 8. They're in the Chicago, Atlanta, Milwaukee. I think Charlotte's in there. I don't think Washington's quite at that level yet, but the Brooklyn's in there. They're in that group of teams just trying to keep their head above water. They for as much as everyone is frustrated with how the Magic have played, they're treading water. And I think that perspective, it's not satisfying. It's not good. I think I'd imagine the Cavs fans are having the same experience with their team. It's not good to be just treading water, but it's a lot better than drowning. And we saw this team drown, like not drown. They obviously rallied to make the playoffs, but we saw this team really flounder when they faced this adversity last year. And this year, because Anthony Black's playing with a ton more confidence, because he's taken this step forward, because frankly, I named him my first half MVP. Like, I don't think the Magic are anywhere near able to accomplish their goals if Anthony Black doesn't take the step forward that he has. So he's been a vital player to this team.
If you could jump in a time machine and go back to the summer, would you do the Desmond Bane trade again?
Yes, I think I absolutely would. For the same deal with Anthony Black. Like, I don't know where the Magic would be without Desmond Bane. Like, he stepped up into that kind of second man role when Paolo was out, when the Magic really picked up some steam and were winning some games to like kind of build their record to what it is. He's had some humongous games for this team. Like, with all the inconsistency they've had, he had the game-winning 3 against Portland. That was a big turning point. He saved the team from a loss at Utah in a big turning point game in overtime. Like, he's had all these moments that the Magic just don't have really any. When Franz is out and Paolo's not working at full Paolo tilt, they need someone that can get to the rim and get to the basket. And for as inconsistent as Desmond Bane might be at that, he can do that, and he can be that player. And so having some extra guys who can attack, and that's always been the Magic's big problem during this run it was Paolo and Franz were the only guys that could beat you off the dribble, that could get their own shot off the dribble. Now the Magic have Paolo, they have Franz, they have Desmond Bane, they have Anthony Black. Jalen Suggs, I think, can do it a little bit. Mo Wagner, now that he's healthy, can not create his own shot off the dribble, but you can dump the ball in the post and he'll get a look for himself. They have more ways to attack, and so it's just now getting all the pieces together. Bane was obviously brought in to be a 3-point shooter, and he hasn't really done that so far this year. He's shooting better than his season numbers. Like, he's back to like kind of a league average shooter for the season, but he's been shooting the high 30s for a while now. They're not getting him enough 3-point shots, but he's had to be on the ball a lot more. And without that, I think the Magic would again be in a lot of trouble.
All right, I'll get you out of here with this, because these two teams obviously play twice. They play Saturday, they play again on Monday, then they play 2 more times throughout the rest of the regular season. Next match,
maybe 7 more after that.
Potentially, who knows? So between now, or I guess Monday after these 2 games, and the next time these 2 teams play, which I believe is March 11th in Orlando, do you anticipate the Magic looking different? Like, are they a team that you think is going to be players in the trade market as that deadline approaches next month?
I don't think the Magic will be players in the trade market. They obviously made their big deal with Desmond Bane. I think the only thing the Magic are going to do at the deadline is some accounting. They're within reasonable shouting distance of the luxury tax line that they need to get under the luxury tax line. I think it's $5.6 million or roughly or thereabouts. There's no reason for the Magic to start their repeater clock. And, it's not the answer fans want to hear. I've been kind of prepping Magic fans to say, like, hey, they're not going to add anything. They're dumping Tyus Jones into someone's empty salary and taking back top 55 protected seconds so that they can get under the tax and avoid paying the penalty, because they're going to be a first apron team next year and potentially a second apron team moving forward. So I don't see the Magic looking drastically different roster-wise, but certainly by March, I would expect Jalen Suggs is back and Franz Wagner's up and running and Paolo's up and running, and they've got more than 117 minutes of their opening night starting lineup playing together. I think that's going to be the big transformational change for this team, and hopefully, and then we'll see if this team can hit its potential and those expectations.
That sounds very similar to what I've been talking about here locally. And I think that these two teams are on a similar path, and we will see how those paths intersect this weekend when the Cavs take on the Magic in Orlando on Saturday and then back here in Cleveland on Monday. But if you want to learn more about Orlando heading into those two pretty big matchups, I think, for both teams, make sure you check out Locked On Magic. Philip Rossman-Reich has you covered. Thanks so much for the time, man.
Always happy to be on, Danny. And I think we'll be seeing each other a little bit later on this year.
Thank you again for making this special edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen or watch. You can find us on YouTube. If you're watching us as we get out of here, getting ready for the game against the Orlando Magic, please make sure you hit the thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And I will be right back here at Locked On Cavs right after the Cavs take on the Magic on Saturday night.